Hi, I'm Jan Schlichtmann. This is Voices of the Law, and I have with me Mark Wahlstrom, who's going to join us to talk about something really important. It's called the election, and really it's all about you. Mark, thanks for joining with us.
Oh, glad to be here, Jan. Always good to talk with you.
Well, Mark, we're having this on a very momentous day, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Momentous not in a positive way, but in a negative way. We woke up today to find this economic calamity before us. Of course, we've been sensing it for months. All the signs have been there, but now we're seeing it in the fall of such giants as Merrill Lynch and Lehman Brothers, and now AIG talking about problems on all these huge brands.
Right.
And it's all being done, of course, during this important election cycle. America's about to do that quadrennial choice of which direction do they go as a country. And I thought it was really important if we could talk a little bit. Me. As a kind of a liberal Democrat, of course, it depends on the particular issues, and you as the kind of liberal token Republican libertarian, and hopefully between that little mix, we might be able to convey why we, from our different perspectives, are really concerned about the issues that are important to be discussed, and they're not really being discussed, and trying to encourage those who have the pleasure of watching this, maybe perhaps getting a little more involved in encouraging the discussion of issues that really will play in everybody's everyday lives.
Sure. Well, and the thing I do want to clarify, Jan, is that I'm the kind of Republican that thinks Goldwater was a lefty. So I'm out there. I'm a hardcore conservative, but really in a libertarian way, and particularly in the area. And this is the thing that really continues to bother me as a Republican, is how the Republican Party has sold out to the tort reform forces, really for campaign cash, for no other reason. Because I continue to believe, and I will go to my grave professing, that the greatest mistake that the Republican Party makes every single year is to get on this tort reform bandwagon, because it's a purely political issue. To me, it's the most anti-consumer, anti-constitutional issue that the Republican Party can be involved in. But the bottom line is that the forces of tort reform, the insurance giants like AIG, the drug companies like Merck, the Chamber of Commerce, the big manufacturers, pour hundreds of millions of dollars into federal, state, and local elections to try and influence tort reform on every level. And
this is Mark. This is what was so curious to me, because what is so ironic here, of course, is that McCain, with his choice of Palin, of course, has given his brand, the Maverick brand, refurbishing, and it's shining bright, much to the good fortunes right now of the Republicans in this election that they were supposed to lose, and now looks like they're very much in the driver's seat right now.
Right.
And what is so startling to me is that Maverick message works, and yet in his acceptance speech, it came up again. The tail popped out of the pants there, and he talked about trial, how he stood up to the trial lawyers, again signaling that on the agenda is going to be so-called tort reform. When he's from Arizona. Arizona is a libertarian state, bedrock in its principles, individuality, etc. And the rights of individuals are sacrosanct, and it's a counter to the brand.
It's in our state constitution. This is a state that has not allowed tort reform 4 years in a row. It is the most Republican of Republican states. And as I tell people, I said, the people out west who understand tort reform, people in the state of Wyoming have overturned attempts at tort reform, Arizona. You can't get any more conservative than Wyoming and Arizona politically. Yeah. And the reason it gets overturned is, as I tell people, I said, people did not see their fathers and brothers and family members fight and die in wars so that we could save $2 supposedly on our auto insurance bill with State Farm.
And it's a phony connection, as all the
Absolutely
studies show.
It is.
Of course,
Absolutely
what they're trying to convey, they're trying to canoodle people out of their sacred fundamental rights
Absolutely.
that protect them every day. That's why we had a revolution. That's why we fought,
Absolutely.
even ourselves in the mid-19th century, and then fought, other enemies that threatened us. It was for those individual rights, and to give up individual rights for a false promise of saving some money on your insurance, which is totally false, is just no bargain at all. It's a bad bargain.
And the great irony in all of this is that, it really does. As you get older, as we've gotten older, and we've always been involved in politics in our particular businesses, we recognize that this is purely a political and financial issue, and this is a situation where the Republican Party, from a political standpoint, realized that they had to weaken and eviscerate the trial lawyers who are largely Democrats. The best way they could do that was through tort reform, to weaken their ability to influence campaign direction, campaign contributions. This is the new element, and this is the one that really disturbs me as a Republican, is this attempt to take on the appointment of judges and begin to take away the power of appointment of judges at the state level through, this is the new campaign by the Chamber of Commerce, the interference in the U.S. legal system by the corporatists of the corporate Rockefeller wing of the Republican Party, I think, is disgraceful. And the fact that
on that point, I want to put on the table then, as we go down the list of why people should care. In this election, we want to really foster a discussion about who the next Supreme Court justices are going to be and how they feel about things, because people have to appreciate that right now we're about a hair's breadth away from losing the ability to be able to sue on dangerous drugs and dangerous products.
Absolutely.
Through this bringing out of these so-called preemption doctrines. I don't get into the nitty-gritty except to say that Supreme Court has signaled in a very strong way that they're going to defer to the regulators, so that if regulators are regulating a product, then how many products out there are not regulated by the regulators? If they're regulated by the regulators, then we're going to assume that
it's safe.
If it's safe, and if it isn't, well, that's a regulatory problem, not a personal, not a victim's problem, and there's going to be no redress for the victims. Now, I dare say very few Americans understand how close they are to losing what they think of as a fundamental American right to hold people accountable for injuring you, for not acting with care that they should in making these products that, of course, are very important to our lives, but also can introduce danger into our lives unnecessarily. We're about to lose that one. People need to get discussion at the federal and state and local level in this election cycle. How do people stand on whether people should have those rights to be able to hold others accountable? Well,
I think the main thing, and we're going to do a whole series of shows, we've got a lot of other interesting guests we're going to be bringing on between now and Election Day, but people have got to be aware this is a concerted effort at the state level, at the local level, and the federal level to impact the judiciary, to strip people of their rights and access to the courts, and it is being done for the most callous and cynical of reasons, simply in order to keep cash coming in to political campaigns, and also to protect the liability and the future earning potential of these companies, and companies who have largely, in many, many instances, proved themselves unworthy of deserving that protection. The American citizen should not give up their right and access to the courts, and it's something that we're passionate about here on the Legal Broadcast Network, and we're going to do a whole series of shows. And I'm urging, many of my conservative Republican friends, take a hard look at this issue and stop and think about what is going on here. Get out of the political realm and take a look at what we're trying to do here as a party. We've sold out to corporate interests, and ask yourself, in the big picture of things, what are we really gaining? What are we giving up? It is a dangerous path that we have tread, and I really hope that John McCain and the Republican Party breaks of this pattern and be a true maverick and get rid of these lobbyists and get rid of the tort reform lobby.
I'm going to add it on the Democratic side, because what was not seen in that wonderful Democratic convention, what was not seen, and of course what occurred there, was huge corporate interests coming in, setting up their relationships and their parties and all the kinds of stuff that they do. And we have on our own side, on the Democratic side, exactly the same pressures. And if we become the majority party, then I'm telling you the same. Remember, it was as you pointed out in a show that we just did here, the breaking down of the barriers that protected the American financial institutions
and the taxpayers
occurred at the end of the Clinton administration, not during the Bush administration. And that very much what we're now experiencing right now came as a result, well-intentioned though it may have been, perhaps, the breaking down of barriers that we are now, a decade later, now suffering the consequences of. So this is an affliction on both sides of the political spectrum. Every citizen needs to be aware of this and get involved in the election to understand how these issues will come home to roost on a very personal level. So that right to vote, that right to engage in the discussion is not only precious, it's vital to your future.
If I can leave with just one last word, and I'll let you wrap up, Chan, is that the average person, if you don't understand the issue, if you don't understand the complexity of it, always err on the side of personal freedom. Whether you're a Democrat, an independent, or Republican, err on the side of personal freedom and the rights of the individual citizen to go to court and redress a wrong. That is our basic fundamental principle. You can't go wrong if you vote your conscience in that particular area.
Mark, I could not have said it better. I'm going to leave on that note. You just heard Voices of the Law, how you have to get involved in this election. It's all about you. Thank you.
Thank you.